Pop culture. It's quite literally a collage of all popular trends in entertainment during a specific time frame. Pop culture can shift from one pole to the other throughout time. But for the last century or so, what seems to be a never-changing factor is the it girl. An it girl could be described as a girl who is favored amongst society for being attractive, stylish, and for being authentically original, or what's perceived as authentic. It girls are often relatively young and influential to their peers or the youth, but that influence is not without issue. Oftentimes, we look up to people in society and have goals of being like them however we can. We set unrealistic expectations, giving ourselves inferiority complexes. It girls can also go through something similar, having large groups of people always critiquing or mimicking them. Depending on the person, they may develop a superiority complex or an identity crisis. We see these people as perfect, but the mental health issues are not really as one-sided or black and white as you might think. That's why, in this installment of 4 of a Kind cartoons, I'll be breaking down 4 unique episodes that all revolve around some aspect of the it girl. Here we go. We'll be starting with the Billy and Mandy episode, My Fair Mandy. The Citrus Festival beauty pageant is coming up, and Mandy is being ridiculed by her nemesis and popular school bully, Mindy. Now, this isn't out of the ordinary for them, but something in Mandy changes when Principal Good Vibes co-signs the crap Mindy is talking. He tells Mandy that the only one who can judge her beauty is a panel of 3 judges. Amazing advice from the world's greatest principal. Mandy goes home and asks Grim and Billy if she's pretty, a question that's probably never come out of her mouth. I've always seen Mandy as someone who never second guesses herself, but this whole Mindy beauty pageant situation has really put her in a strange place. Grim and Billy basically call her ugly without saying it. Now Mandy is a scowling, angry, rough girl who's never seemed to care about appearances or other people's appearances. So although it wasn't the nicest response, I don't think she should have expected much else from those two. She tells them she wants to enter the beauty pageant, and they laugh at her like it's a comedy show. Mandy doesn't take too kindly to that. But this is when Mindy shows up to talk more crap to Mandy. This is where we see that this is a mix of competition with Mindy and a need for validation from her peers. The boys agree to help her win the pageant, and Grim takes her to meet an underworld makeover artist named Krabina. She identifies Mandy as ugly, but says she's ugly because her attitude is ugly, not just her outward appearance. She states that Mandy must learn to smile in order to win the pageant, something Mandy has never done in her life. They go through a montage of hilarious and cheerful things attempting to make Mandy crack a smile, even for a second, but nothing works. The angry scowl that's iconic to her character seems to be permanent. We jump forward to the pageant night. It's before the show when the girls are backstage getting ready, where we see a satirical commentary on child beauty pageants.
The bigger you smile, the more beautiful mommy looks. Baby, it's time to earn mommy's love.
It points out that most often, these girls are put into pageants by their mothers who are living vicariously through them. It's a moment that really points out a vicious cycle of seeking validation from others. So Krabina arrives and reveals the freshly made over Mandy. She looks completely out of her element, but regardless of the new look, she's still not smiling. Mindy comes to confront her one more time before the show, which lights a fire in Mandy to take her down. The competition begins and Mandy is doing awful, bombing in the evening gown and swimsuit competition. And I was blown away to find out that the swimsuit competition is completely real and it's an actual part of child beauty pageants. It's been a controversial topic for a while, and in recent years, some pageants have been phasing these out, but it's nuts to think that it's such a common thing, and parents are signing their kids up for it. So Mandy starts winning the judges over with her originality, and the score is close between Mindy and Mandy. It comes down to the talent competition, where Mandy performs Somewhere Over the Rainbow. To win first place, she must smile, or she'll be runner-up to Mindy. So the pressure is on, and while singing, it looks like every being of her is fighting against this made-up persona of a pageant girl. She looks through the crowd and finds encouragement from Grim and Billy, giving her the faith to go for a smile. She musters up the strength and cracks a smile that breaks reality. This ends up turning the trio into Powerpuff Girls, where Mandy somehow ends up being Bubbles. What I got from this story was that Mandy lost herself while trying to beat her rival. Everything in her went against pageants and beauty, but she was so engulfed in her feud with Mindy that she was willing to change who she is to win. Mindy could be looked at as someone who's striving to be an it girl in some ways, yet in doing so, she tries to invalidate others and put herself on a pedestal. She points out people's flaws and walks around with this superiority complex. Alright, next up is Phineas and Ferb, Attack of the 50-Foot Sister. So Candace and her best friend Stacy are watching TV in Candace's room when an advertisement jingle for Flawless Girl Cosmetics airs. Stacy informs Candace that the founder is at the Midsummer's Festival looking for models. So Candace heads to the festival to audition for this brand that she looks up to and makes her feel happy. She gets there and auditions, but is told she's too short even though she is considered statistically pretty tall for a woman. She takes this as being genetically ugly and goes as far as using Phineas and Ferb's growth elixir to increase her height. The elixir ends up transforming her into a 50-foot tall teenager. This is when a sideshow manager, P.P. Otter, aims to recruit her for his oddball show, a place where quote-unquote freaks are enlisted to be made a spectacle of for people's entertainment and self-esteem boost. At this moment, Candace accepts that she's now a freak who can never be looked at as beautiful because now she's actually too large and not the perfect height. So she runs away to join the oddball show. For a promo stunt, she's convinced to climb a skyscraper holding P.P. Otter like she's King Kong. Flawless Girl founder Blanca Deshawn notices Candace atop the skyscraper and rushes to meet her. There, she offers to make Candace a flawless girl because her height is so unattainable, no girl could ever live up to the expectations of what she'll be able to establish for beauty.
Girls will never be able to live up to the expectations you'll set. They'll be forced to buy my product forever.
Here's where Candace realizes the truth about the sideshow industry and, more importantly, the beauty world. They are both based on feeding on the insecurities of other people. She decides she'll no longer be focusing on beauty and starts running home as a 50-foot tall monster to fulfill her true purpose in life, busting her brothers. While on her way there, Doofenshmirtz accidentally gets a hold of the elixir and puts it in his innator and spreads it across the universe. So right when Candace is about to show her mom what the boys did to her, she looks to be the exact same size. And I guess that means the Phineas and Ferb universe is canonically 9 times the size of our universe. I'd say Disney World needs to scale up their mascots then. The point of this episode is that there are industries set up to feed on insecurities by creating these unattainable standards of beauty. They make it seem like the only way you can be as beautiful as the models they promote is by buying their products. Are you short, have acne, textured hair, or too much hair? Buy our products because that's what will make you beautiful. The writers used height, something that's completely genetically linked and unchangeable, as to further push this point.
She's at the forefront of every trend, never less than 5'10".
Ideally, we shouldn't make things like beauty our main purpose in life, which is what Candace eventually realizes. Next up, we have Rugrats all grown up. Susie sings the blues. So the episode starts with the musical stylings of Susie Carmichael. She's rehearsing the Star-Spangled Banner in the school's lounge. Angelica makes a comment on the quality of her singing, basically telling her that she sucks. Coming from Angelica, who sounds like a dying seal, this means nothing. But honestly, Susie's singing is just okay. But a talent scout who just happens to be on campus seems to think she's got what it takes to be a star. Her name is Beverly Jones, and she reaches out to Susie to see if she's interested in working with her. She gives her a business card and heads out. The compliments and attention get Susie imagining a world of stardom and success as the next teen pop star. At the Java Lava, Chaz and Betty are struggling to keep the coffee shop afloat. They decide to do a talent night starring Susie to bring in customers. So back at the Carmichael residence, Susie's telling her parents about the talent scout and her dream of being a pop star. Now, the Carmichael parents are 2 really successful people in their respective fields. The dad is a writer for the Dummy Bears, and the mom is a doctor, amongst a million other amazing attributes. I have a video on my channel going into more detail about these 2 as well as the other Rugrats parents. But what's important to note about them is they've probably seen what it takes to become highly successful. When Susie says she wants to go all out for pop stardom, they give her a dose of reality. Not many people will be able to make it to that level, and there is some luck involved. I personally think that their approach to parenting in this situation was okay. They let her know that they think she has talent, but it's a tough world out there. They encourage her to have a backup plan, which isn't the worst idea, but I also have an issue with them insisting she not focus on a career in singing and instead work on academics. For me, the delivery is extremely condescending, but that's such a hard topic to teach as a parent. They have the difficult task of uplifting their child and showing them what the world is really like. Obviously, this upsets Susie, and the next day she goes to her friends for reassurance that she can reach her dreams. Her friends Phil and Lil give her backhanded compliments saying she's great, but for a local talent. not good enough to be like Emika, a major pop star in the Rugrats universe. In fact, her friends are helping her rival Angelica with music for nothing more than empty promises of boys and coercion. It's at this point Susie's at her lowest and calls on Beverly to help her reach her dreams, the only person who seems to believe in her. They set up some practices where Beverly compliments her and lets her know she has what it takes to be a star. She wants to get Susie to create a demo tape so she can send it to a record label that's been wanting to hear from her. She needs $1,000 from Susie to book the studio and musicians for the session. Obviously, Susie doesn't have that much money in high school, so she asks her older sister Elisa for the payment. Her sister regrettably agrees, giving her the money she needs. Susie takes the money to Beverly, who then gives her a time and location to meet at for the session. Before she leaves, she tells Susie something worth noting. She says,
"This is your last day as the old Susie Carmichael. Tomorrow, your life is going to change forever."
So the next day, Susie shows up to the address by bus, all dressed up and ready to work. Only the address is an empty building. Susie's just been scammed. There is no studio, there is no record label, and Beverly has just made off with her sister's money. The shop owner next door tells her that this has happened before and offers to call her parents to come get her. Susie declines and takes a seat at the bus stop. Time lapses and night begins to fall. Her friend Kimmy comes by to support her at her first recording session, only to find her heartbroken on the bench. Susie confesses what happened and starts to break down. As a kid, I didn't remember the dialogue of this scene, just the emotion and how it made me feel. But watching it over, I find myself identifying with Susie for some reason. Maybe it's because I can understand that gut-wrenching, vulnerable feeling of someone conning you and getting away with it. Whatever it is, it feels very palpable. Kimmy assures her that the money is replaceable and she still has her talent. She assures her tomorrow, after she sings at the Java Lava, she'll be fine. But Susie, being in the middle of the worst situation she can imagine, is not interested in continuing to chase her dreams. So back at home, it's time to face the music. She tells her sister Elise what's happened, and her sister rightfully grills her. She points out the obvious: don't trust strangers, something worse could have happened. But I also love that she herself takes blame for not doing more investigation. She backs off when she sees Susie emotionally retreating. She relaxes some and makes a joke about Susie paying her back, and then tells her now she can focus on more important things. Susie realizes that she'll never stop singing and that this isn't just some dumb hobby to her. This is her passion. This reignites the flame inside of her, and she heads out to the Java Lava to sing at the show. To the relief of everyone in the crowd who've been sitting through this awful poetry, dad jokes, and
2, 3, 4, can't help it, boy. My heart's got call waiting.
Angelica, Susie takes the stage. The crowd loves it, and it looks like Susie Carmichael is back on track, more driven than before to chase her dreams. While this episode isn't too much about beauty, it has the aspect of idolization of an it girl and what that influence can cause. It speaks to the way that people feed on the vulnerable who have lofty dreams, but it also gives a great message that even though the world can be tough and unforgiving at times, you don't have to let it crush your dreams. If they make you happy, continue to chase them. Next, probably the most direct episode, Hey Arnold's It Girl. The episode starts at good old PS 118. Mr. Simmons is announcing that the fashion designer Johnny Stitches is coming to find a model for his kids' apparel line. Everyone in class is ecstatic about the opportunity. But Helga, being the person that she is, completely hates the idea of models and popularity. She sees the superficialness of the whole industry and is firmly against it all. The auditions start after school, and Helga comes to sit in the stands and just hang out with her friends. The auditions are going on, and Johnny isn't finding any inspiration in the kids who've auditioned. But when he notices Helga in the stands, pretending to model and clown them for their shallowness and eating disorders, he thinks he's found the one. He's found his it girl. What he likes about her is her unique look, individuality, and her attitude. He pitches a contract to Helga, who turns it down. You see, Helga is a girl of simple things. She doesn't care about fashion, money, fame, or traveling. She's the type of person who's content being who she is and where she is. It isn't until Johnny pitches the idea of free stuff that he catches her attention. And at that point, she was all on board. Johnny puts Helga through runway training to get her ready to be a traditional model. The usual walk and turn, pose, and smile. But Helga is extremely defiant and doesn't know how to be anything else but her scowling, angry self. But in doing so, she's setting the new standard for what is popular and sought after. She becomes a complete trendsetter. Pretty soon, she becomes bigger than life. Endorsements, free stuff, talk shows, and everybody and their mama starts wearing her iconic pink dress and bow. But Helga's not enjoying any of the attention and fame. She doesn't even really enjoy the free stuff, the only reason she signed up for this. She seems to miss her individuality and privacy. If everyone's wearing what she wears, she may be the originator, but she's losing that uniqueness that makes her her. So in an attempt to turn things back to normal, she requests out of her contract with the agency. But we all know how business goes. You're not getting out of anything without a fight. So once Helga realizes she sold her soul to the devil for free stuff, she devises a plan to get him to let her out of the contract. She goes on a rampage, acting worse than ever before, knocking models off the runway, spitting on paparazzi, and just generally turning her attitude up 10 notches. This whole plan backfires though, because those traits are the very thing the world has fallen in love with. By doing it more, she's really just gaining more attention. It isn't until she gets words of wisdom from the walking advice column that is Arnold. He tells her to try being nice, and she takes that advice straight to the runway, bowing, curtsying, and even smiling. This works perfectly, as no one cares to pay attention to her and instantly move on to the next fad. Johnny loses it and tears up her contract, releasing her from the deal. So everything seems to have worked out. Later, we get a scene of her back at school one morning amongst her peers who've all joined the next fashion craze. She stands there, just her, as she was before the fame, with this blissed out expression, completely content with no one paying her any attention. Unlike the previous 3 episodes, this episode shows everything from the side of the it girl who's already made it. We get to see the effects the media can have on the it girl herself, which in Helga's case is a sort of social angst mixed with an identity crisis. The pressure of leadership and being an example of what is it can be an unhealthy burden to bear at that age. Yet we put people through it all the time. Zendaya, Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, and on and on. These people are growing up in the public eye, constantly being looked at for everything they do. It could be extremely easy to lose yourself in all of that going on. So even though we sometimes demonize it girls, I can't put the blame all on them. At the end of the day, the it girl is a concept created by industry and media to push an idea to sell a product. It's okay to show admiration for others in entertainment, but I also think it's important to keep in mind that these people are shown as fabricated examples of perfection, and that's not something we need to strive towards. Being your genuine self is leaps and bounds better than attempting to be someone else's idea of perfect. If you made it this far, take the time to drop a like and subscribe. Your support helps the channel grow and it keeps you up to date on my videos. I also created a Patreon if you want to show further support. I'll be giving early access to content there as well as some behind the scenes content. Until next time, see ya.